Today's speaker is Laura Tockenberger of the Bureau of Labor and Industries. And with that, I am going to pass the baton to Laura. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you, Stacy. Welcome, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. I'm really excited about this topic, and I hope to answer any questions for all of you. Like Stacy said, I'm Laura Toggenberger. I'm an apprenticeship representative and also a journey level carpenter with the Bureau of Labor and Industries in the Apprenticeship and Training Division. I graduated or completed or journeyed out from my apprenticeship program in 2020 in Oregon, and I'm also an Oregon Tradesman Pre-Apprenticeship graduate and a PNCI Carpenter's Trade Pre-Apprenticeship graduate as well. I joined the Apprenticeship and Training Division, also called ATD, as an apprenticeship representative about a year and a half ago. And that's where I provide the technical assistance, aka understanding the federal and state laws to apprenticeship programs within the state of Oregon. So I'm very excited to hopefully answer your questions today. So first things first, registered apprenticeship is jargon heavy. There's many terms that we use to describe the same thing or used honestly to describe the wrong thing. And on top of that, the trades utilize specific terminology that can be regional specific, adding to that mystical vocabulary enveloping registered apprenticeship. I will stop periodically to define different terms you'll hear throughout our presentation. And if you have any questions, feel free to write down whatever that word was that I said somewhere in the middle, and I will help define that for you. So today we're going to discuss apprenticeship in Oregon, including what is registered apprenticeship, examples of apprenticeship, components of apprenticeship, including the industry standard and JATC, what to expect as an apprentice, how to apply for apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship, and answer any of your questions. Apprenticeship in Oregon. The Bureau of Labor and Industry oversees 157 registered programs that manage 285 occupations with over 10,000 apprentices. The registered apprenticeship program is overseen by BOLI's ATD, or Apprenticeship and Training Division. We are the agency that has been authorized by USDOL Office of Apprenticeship to oversee apprenticeship programs and agreements for state and federal purposes. We do this in collaboration with the Oregon State Apprenticeship and Training Council, also called OSAT. And OSAT is made up of 8 council members appointed by the governor to enforce apprenticeship regulations. Almost anyone can be on that council if you're interested. They do have an opening, I believe, right now. Typically, it's industry partners, so employers like carpenters or industrial people. So like I've said before, ATD provides that technical assistance to help programs operate in compliance with state and federal regulations. And now I've said registered apprenticeship a couple times, so let's just talk about that. So registered apprenticeship is a high quality career pathway where employers can develop and prepare their future workforce through paid work experience and classroom instruction. This is commonly called earn while you learn. Some employers may offer what we call little a apprenticeship, which is not overseen by federal or state rules and regulations. You'll often find that they're shorter. They don't offer pay sometimes. There's not really classroom hours. I've seen them more in like a tattoo parlor might offer an apprenticeship. A beauty school might offer an apprenticeship. You might do an informal apprenticeship in a restaurant. And those are not what we're talking about today. We're talking about registered apprenticeship, and that's why we keep saying that term. And registered apprenticeship is structured in a way that a person will be in it for about 1 to 5 years. And it's also seen as 2,000 to 10,000 hours. So you'll see in a lot of our standards, it'll say 2,000 hours rather than 1 year, because they're not really sure how long it will take you. Apprentices are employees of a company that they work for during that time, and they're always paid. And when they complete the program, they're considered a subject matter expert or a journey level worker or a journeyman journeywoman, journey person, topped out. There's a lot of different terms. Again, it's sometimes specific to the trade or occupation. And within registered apprenticeship, there are three main components that every apprentice should know about, and also just everyone in general. And that's one, the industry standard, two, that you're getting paid supervised on the job training, and three, there's certified classroom instruction. Now let's talk a little bit about the different occupations available in apprenticeship. Traditional occupations include electrician, plumber, bricklayer, cement finisher, elevator mechanic, operator, painter, carpenter, etc. There are a number of non-traditional trades that are coming in as well that we're getting through registration. So we have currently we have medical assistant, certified pharmacy technician, firefighter, certified alcohol and drug counselor, and qualified mental health associates. The traditional apprenticeship trades, more often in construction, you'll see electrician, and there's descriptions. You'll find them on our BOLI website, in addition to a couple of their websites that I'll reference later on. Electricians, if none of you are aware, they install, maintain, replace, and repair electrical systems and equipment. That's a basic overview of electricians, because even within the electrician trade, there are line workers, the folks that work on all those large electrical lines outside, and also in remote areas. There's electricians who work inside of a home who might just do residential work. There are electricians who just maintain equipment within a facility, such as like a wastewater treatment facility. There are also electricians who do brand new high-rise buildings and install brand new work. There's all kinds within that branch of, within that capsule of electrician. There's maintenance mechanic is one. They repair, install, adjust, or maintain industrial production and processing machinery or refinery and pipeline distribution systems. There's a whole plethora of jobs that are available through apprenticeship. Another fantastic one is plumber, assemble, install, and repair pipes, fittings, medical gas systems, and fixtures of heating, water, and drainage systems. Most people often think of a plumber as just doing like the service calls within your house, but that's not all a plumber does. They actually install the brand new systems within large buildings or small buildings. They also can do pipe fitting, which is the sprinkler systems or the gas systems within buildings. Again, it's not just service calls for a house. There's more to it. And now that we've sort of gone over like what registered apprenticeship is and examples of apprenticeship occupations, we're going to talk more about the standard. I kind of referenced that earlier. And the industry standard is the document that oversees a particular apprenticeship. And it comprises of the lists of the skills and knowledge competencies apprentices will learn on the job or in the classroom by the end of their apprenticeship. And it includes all the training activities and the credentials apprentices receive along the way at the completion of their apprenticeship. So in this example, this is a cover page of a standard in the state of Oregon. And you'll see on there, it has the name of the apprenticeship program, which is at the top, and it says Standards of Apprenticeship adopted by Pacific Northwest Carpenters, JATC. That is the name of this program or committee, or JATC, which we also use, or sponsor. It's a lot of terms that we use. So typically you'll hear us just say program. So the Pacific Northwest Carpenters, JATC, is this particular standard. You'll see the occupation title on the left, and that says carpenter. You'll see some numbers like stick, stock, symbol, suffix, and those are federal codes that we use for occupations. Those aren't really, they're fun if you want to dive into that data and things, but otherwise you don't need to concern yourself with that. The term, though, that is the length of the apprenticeship. So this says 8,000 hours. And if you do the math, there's about 52 weeks in a year, 40 hours a week, minus a week of vacation or sick time, and you have about 2,000 hours in a year. So this apprenticeship would be about 4 years in length. As you go down on the lines, I highlighted where it says license and it says NA. Within the state of Oregon, the Building Codes Division oversees licensure. And many of those licenses require apprenticeship or proof of apprenticeship from another state. So within Oregon, if you want to be an electrician and you want to be a licensed electrician, which you have to be to conduct electrical work, it'll be noted here, it'll say general journeyman electrician is what the license will say. And BCD and your apprenticeship program will ensure that you take that test for the license. Carpentry, this example for the carpenters, there is no license requirement. And another little tidbit of information, there's an MA number on here, and that's to the left of where it says, or just below occupational title, it says MA number, and that says 1057. And that's the master agreement number, which is unique to each Oregon state approved apprenticeship standard or program, sorry. Some programs have multiple different standards that they oversee as well. But that's just a little something that if you're talking to BOLI or ATD and you're like, oh, I don't know, blah, 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 and we have to reference a number, and it's the master agreement number. So going into the standard, this is what the table of contents looks like. And there's a lot on there. You see a lot of numbers and a lot of letters and a lot of references. The contents like 1 through 12 are boilerplate language. So when you're looking at a specific occupation or standard, you don't really need to look through that. Those are all the same for each standard. There's a couple, sometimes there's a little bit different, but for the most part, that's where all the same material is. At the bottom though, on part 13, where it says program contact information and it has all the appendices, that's like the meat and potatoes of each standard. That's where you're going to find out, like, what does this standard teach? What on the job training am I going to find in this occupation? How much will I get paid? What do I need to have to apply? So I kind of highlighted down here these different things. Appendix B is the minimum qualifications, and that lists the approved minimum qualifications an apprenticeship program will have. And many occupations will have universal minimum qualifications. Typically, you have to be 18 across the board at the time of registration. You might be able to apply while you're 17. Some of them allow that, but at the time of registration into an apprenticeship program, you have to be 18. Appendix C is the selection procedure, and that defines how a specific program selects apprentices. So while you have met the minimum qualifications to apply for this, you will now need to see like how they award points, how they do an interview, how they do how they place you with a employer, or what we also call a training agent. You'll find that in that selection procedure. You'll see work processes, or what the paid on the job work is and how it's outlined. And then Appendix G is the related training or the classroom training. And that's where they outline, like, these are the classes that you will be taking as an apprentice. So I mentioned the work processes, or the paid supervised on the job training, and that occurs in the workplace, and it allows apprentices to become familiar with the work environment as they develop skills that are essential to the occupation. Apprentices learn tools, culture, technology, and experience real-world day-to-day challenges. The program will be placing you with the training agent, also called employer. Some programs call it placement, others call it dispatch. It depends on if you're union or non-union. So again, tons of jargon with this. And yep, Appendix F, that's where it outlines it. And in here you can see there are about 500 hours allocated for welding and fabrication. You see the breakdown of all the other ones in here. General maintenance of boilers. What else is on here? General maintenance. And then to make sure that you're in like the correct standard, if you look at the header and the footer on it, you'll see it says in the header, industrial maintenance millwright. So this is the work processes for an industrial maintenance millwright, which is somebody who works like at a plant. And you'll often find millwrights that are just like, instead of traveling, which some millwrights do to work on different projects, industrial ones will work at like a wood processing plant somewhere. Additionally, on-the-job training is supervised by a journey worker, or what we also call a subject matter expert. In occupations that require licensure, the apprentices must be supervised by an individual with an equivalent or higher license to what they're training for. So there's a little bit more nuances to that. So within the electrical trades, there are the hierarchy of electricians within that licensure. So there's almost all electrical apprentices are required to be supervised at all times for that. Then Appendix G, related training, and that is the organized and systematic form of instruction designed to provide an apprentice with the knowledge of the theoretical and technical subjects related to their occupation. Each program schedules their trainings throughout the year, either in the evenings, during a typical work week, or in other forms. Some do them all in winter, so you might have 3 weeks of classes. Some do them throughout the year. The program that I was in, it was sprinkled throughout. So each quarter of the year, I would take one class for a week at a time. Some programs have their own training centers. So Pacific Northwest Carpenters Institute has their own training center located in Portland. They also have one in Tangent. NECA IBEW also has their own training center located in Portland. Other programs throughout the state do work with community colleges. So we have like Umpqua, Rogue, you name it. They are probably partnered up with an apprenticeship program, and they provide the classroom hours for the programs. So moving on to another portion of the standard, this is the wage and wage progression. And this is important because apprenticeships often have higher wages. They are not allowed, each apprenticeship program is not allowed to pay less than the minimum wage. And many of them pay a greater amount than the minimum wage. So in this one, you'll see this is a glazer, so someone who works on windows, and this is the Oregon Southwest Washington Glaziers Architectural Metal Glass Workers, JATC. So this is their a capture of their standard and their wage and wage progression. And this is in Appendix E of the standard. And apprentices are paid on a progressive wage scale. So when they first start, they will get 45% of $49.91. So as you go through this, you're like, what does that mean? So you multiply 0.45 times 49.91, and you get $22.47 an hour. And that is the beginning wage for a first term, first period beginning apprentice. Again, another jargon heavy area is like first period, first term. I know different trades have different names for the beginning apprentices. And then at their second term, after they've completed 1,000 hours of work, they become a second term apprentice. And that means that they go up to 55% of a journey level rate. And that is $27.45. So they get a $4.98 raise after about 6 months of consistent work, which is phenomenal. As far as I'm concerned, when I also went through my apprenticeship, that was like every 6 months you get almost, it was about a $5 raise every 6 months. It's fantastic. And different programs have different wages. Note, the employer is required to pay this pay scale, and the JTC is required, or the committee or the program is required to be reviewing apprentices regularly. And we'll talk about that some more, but this is just a good place to start, where if you're interested in apprenticeship, or if you're interested in showing folks apprenticeship, the wage and wage progression is a great way to show case where it's like, oh, journey level wages are this much, and this is how much you get each 6 months or however many hours of work. I know I've kind of mentioned it before, JTC, or committee, and let's talk about that a little bit. So Joint Apprenticeship Training Committee is comprised of employers and employees. And typically they're made up of multiple employers get together, or we call them training agents. And they've adopted a standard of apprenticeship. And they're the ones who oversee a standard or a group of standards. They provide the administrative oversight, including applications and registration. They ensure the classroom training is conducted, and they review apprentice progress and various other items. Most apprenticeship programs in Oregon are JATCs, or you'll see JAC, JTC, and there's a few other ones such as a TATC or a TAC or a TTC. Again, a lot of letters and words, all we often refer to as the committee. So it's the apprenticeship committee. And these committees are typically, TATCs are trade apprenticeship training committees. And those are typically a single employer fixed site location. So such as a wastewater treatment facility, a wood manufacturer, a chips maker, and by chips, I mean Frito-Lay, not talking about those fancy electrical chips. They'll have carpenters who work in-house, they'll have electricians, plumbers, millwrights, they'll have all these different trades under one umbrella. And typically a JATC is supposed to oversee one particular trade, because you want electricians overseeing electricians. You don't want a concrete finisher telling an electrician how to do their job or what is needed within their occupation. So a JATC is typically the same occupation and trade overseeing that. And excuse me, they are comprised of, so I said they're employer and employees. Employees are journey level workers. So as a journey level carpenter, I could be on a JATC and I can help facilitate interviews, and I can help facilitate reviewing applications and ensuring that registration is done correctly and that apprentices are moving through the program without barriers. Employers are typically the hiring and firing folks in a industry, and that's good to have them there because they help keep that industry going, and they're the ones who know, like, oh yes, we're bidding on these projects, yes, we know this work is coming, yes, we know what we're doing coming up, and they really do create this nice balanced committee. So that's a JTC. Now let's move on to what to expect as an apprentice. So the length of apprenticeship can vary greatly. It can be anywhere from 1 year to 5 years. I believe electricians are, I think a general electrician is about 5 years of apprenticeship typically. Carpenters, for me, it was 4 years. Let's see, I believe the laborers and the cement finishers are about 3 years. We have various other trades that are less than that, or occupations that are less than that. There is supervised on-the-job training. It is also in the standards, and you'll see it listed there where it says like 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-2 ratio, 2-to-2 ratio, or something like, which doesn't make sense, but sometimes there's some antiquated language in some of these standards that you find. And that's saying that there is someone there to help train you as an apprentice, or to help train that apprentice. There's someone there overseeing that work. They're not just letting you run around with a skill saw or a backhoe and just expect you to dig something. It is paid experience. And this is something that I have found that I often get questions as a BOLI employee, is how to treat an apprentice in this scenario. And it's, well, they're an employee. So don't forget, in addition to being an employee of a training agent or an employer, they are also an apprentice. So just remembering that there is employment law that does apply for apprentices and that protects them, and that they do get paid. So unpaid work is not allowed. So they do get paid. And there are classes. So again, I kind of described that earlier, where it's sometimes they're in the evenings, some are during a week, some are at like winter time, some are in the summertime. Typically wintertime, you'll see more classroom work as construction slows down in the better weather, how I should say. When there's not so nice weather, you have classes. There could be licensure, and there could be college credit with some of these programs. Again, some of them are linked up with community colleges, and some apprentices can get college credit. So how to apply? Minimum qualifications I talked about earlier. All of them are 18 years old for registration. Sometimes you can apply earlier, but at registration you have to be 18. Pre-apprenticeship does have a little bit different. You can be, it depends on the pre-apprenticeship program just for how old you are for those ones. Education, some of them require high school diploma or GED, but not all of them do. Some of them don't actually require any education. There's some of them do list out the physical abilities for them, but typically we don't see that often because it has to be a certified test or it has to be deemed viable by the federal government, and not many of them have this physical requirement, because if the requirement is you have to lift 75 pounds, well, you can also lift 75 pounds with somebody else. So you don't often see this physical requirement. Other additional minimum requirements, though, you might see for education might be like a completion of a math class. A lot of the electrical standards do require a 1 year of algebra or a test proving that you placed in math at a certain level. It'll be spelled out, and we'll take a look at a minimum requirement right now, or a minimum qualification. So this is what it looks like on a standard minimum qualification page for a bricklayer. And you'll see here that the age requirement is 18, and that's it. That's all they require. They do have a note that as a condition of employment, some employers do require additional things, but that's not all the employers. So the only thing you need to have to apply to be a bricklayer is be 18. And you'll find it on all the standards. They'll have all the minimum qualifications listed in Appendix B. So once you have begun the application process, you're referred to as an applicant. And within that, there's the selection procedure. And the selection procedure directs how an applicant is scored off their application or their interview, and is placed on a ranked list or a ranked pool. More jargon for all of you. And after the selection procedure, there's also a list of exceptions, which is also called direct entry. Exceptions allow a program to register applicants at any time if they fall within one of those categories that has been adopted by the committee. So you'll find those on the standard as well. And then also please note that some programs have less than 5 apprentices and are not required to have a selection procedure. So in addition to finding out like, oh, there's a selection procedure, that's awesome. If an applicant looks into a program and they have less than 5, they might have something in their stand that says NA less than 5, and they don't have to share a selection procedure, but they do have to follow federal rules that oversee hiring practices. So there is a way into their program. It's just not spelled out in their standard, and we would just have to work with that employer to figure out how they can get into that apprenticeship program. And you see this more often with, again, like small fixed site places that only have like 2 to 3 apprentices at a time. And they're throughout the state as well. So let's look at an example of a selection procedure. So this is for bricklayer selection procedure. Some of these are very wordy, I will say. A lot of them are very wordy, but yeah, so it's Appendix C selection procedures. You'll find them there. And this just sort of outlines like, okay, you met our minimum qualifications. Now we're going to, you need to fill out our application packet. And from the application packet, we are going to score it from a score of 0 to 100. And based off of that score, we'll then ask you to do an interview. And that interview, we're going to score you from 0 to 100. And those combined scores will come together and we'll put you on our ranked list. Ranked list, ranked pool, eligible pool of applicants is a common terminology you will find within apprenticeship. It seems magical and mystical, and it kind of is sometimes, to try and like tease it out of each program to see who's doing what. But it is outlined in their selection procedures, or it should be. And if it's not, it needs to be. So selection procedure. Now moving on to pre-apprenticeship. I'm going to talk a little bit about pre-apprenticeship, not much about it today. So pre-apprenticeship is our programs designed to prepare inexperienced individuals to enter and complete a registered apprenticeship program. They're located throughout the state and offer various resources for individuals, sometimes including grants for tools, assistance for lost wages, and they offer wraparound services. Or they can help people get wraparound services, meaning they can help them with, like, again, wages or housing, transportation, that type of thing. They vary anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks in length. They don't require any experience. A lot of them offer that exception or direct entry into a program. So many of them are partnered up with apprenticeship programs, and they allow them to allow people to see if they even like apprenticeship. And you can try out different types of apprenticeship. My pre-apprenticeship experience with the Oregon tradeswoman, and I got to try out different trades. It wasn't just one trade that I got to experience, and that really helped me focus in on what I wanted to do. And I found out that they had a direct entry with the program that I ended up going into. A lot of them also help with the filling out of applications. They will help. They have resources for that. They have different, they just have great resources for that. They're a great pipeline of getting folks into apprenticeship. And that is the end of my presentation, and I am open to questions.
Thank you, Laura. Take a deep breath, grab some water, and I will proceed by reading some of the questions that came up in the chat. If you do have a question, now is the time to go ahead and type that question into the chat. So, Laura, the first question that came up was, can a 17-year-old apply for an apprenticeship so long as the apprenticeship begins after their 18th birthday?
Yes, some programs do have that outlined in their standard. You would have to refer to each standard, but they'll allow 17-year-olds to apply, and as long as at registration they are 18.
Great. All right, Laura, here's another question. At the time of application, do any of the apprenticeships require that the applicant already has a job in the field?
Ooh, great question. No, they do not. Some programs and standards do award points on applications for previous experience. They tend to award higher experience for those who have worked in that specific field, which is ironic because this is paid learning. So we try and steer, long story short, we try and steer programs towards not having that in their selection procedure. So no, you don't have to have a job in that field beforehand. Once you enter an apprenticeship program, they will place you with an employer.
Great. All right. So Elaine would like to know more information about actually how to apply to apprenticeship program.
Yeah. So on the standards, there's a contact page for each one of those programs, and it's at the very end of each standard. And you can find all these standards on the BOLI website, which here, I'll put that up here. This is the www.oregon.gov/BOLI/apprenticeship, and that's where all the standards they live. And you can search by occupation. You can search by county that you live in. where these programs are at, and you contact each program individually to see what they're doing or if they're open for applications. A lot of programs are open only certain times a year. The elevator mechanics, I believe, are open for like 2 weeks a year, and I think it's every other year that they might be open for applications. Those are also listed on our website. You can find it there. What are the other? Reach out to the programs, talk to them. Pre-apprenticeship programs can also help with that applying to these programs as well.
That's great. And just as a reminder, during our second session, we'll take a deeper dive into these websites and how to navigate and find this information that Laura's referred to.
And I think our third session, we're going to do more about application and selection procedure as well.
Yes. All right, Laura, another question. What happens if someone starts a apprenticeship and it was required to finish in 4 years and they quit after 2?
Then you've left your apprenticeship. You can request leave of absences during your apprenticeship. That happens. It happens all the time. There's different completion rates for the different programs. I think the carpenter program I was in was about 56% completion rate. The electrician's completion rate's about 75% completion rate. So it happens. Yeah, you can leave at any time. You can request a leave and then come back. I highly recommend that in case you ever want to come back. You can request a leave because you didn't like it. That's totally okay.
That's great. So we have Rachel at Canby High School's asking, she says, I have heard it is very competitive to get into an apprenticeship, and most people who apply have worked multiple years in construction. Is this true?
That's a great question. Certain programs are competitive. I mentioned the elevator operators. They tend to be more competitive. I think it's because there's so few elevator mechanics that they can't take in apprentices as often. Every other year, I think, is when they're open. It depends on the trade and depends on the occupation. There are some apprenticeship programs that are open year-round to applications, and they'll take an application at any time. There are other programs that, are far more competitive. Electrical apprenticeships tend to be a bit more competitive, but there are things you can do to make sure your application does have that competitive edge. And we are going to go over that more in our third session. I highly recommend, if you're interested in it now and you're in high school, is to reach out to those programs directly and ask them what they are looking for. And you can start working on those things now. A pre-apprenticeship program is also a leg up that not many people know about, because that gives you, more often than not, a direct entry into these programs. And not many people know about those, and those are expanding as well.
All right, Laura, what are the least competitive apprenticeship programs?
Well, off the top of my head, the ones I can think of are probably, I want to say, the cement finishers, maybe laborers. There's a couple there's a couple different ones, and that they're open year round. So like laborers and cement finishers are open year round. I'm also located in the Portland metro area, so I have a larger group of programs to like choose from, per se. So around the state, there are electrical programs around the state that are open year round and do take in applications. So I think I might have to think on that a little bit more to get There's so many. I don't know. There's a lot of the trades are really wanting high quality candidates or just someone who wants to just show up every day. So simple question,
That's
yet complicated answer.
great. And of course, we'll compile all these questions and the answers to make sure they're comprehensive. So Laura, the next question is, what is the best source for finding a list of pre-apprenticeship programs?
Yeah, you can look at the Bully website. Even though it says /apprenticeship, if you go on there as well, we have pre-apprenticeship programs that are also listed on there. And you can scroll through and see the different names of them and where they are located.
Excellent. And I believe that answers Anne's question, where she said, where would one find out about the pre-apprenticeship opportunities? All right. Let's see. Next question is, some programs require that an applicant work for a TA for 500 to 750 hours prior to being able to apply for an open apprenticeship. Can you elaborate on that?
So a TA would be a training agent. That might be an industrial setting. Our industrial or fixed site settings tend to have more of that language of you must work for this training agent. And that might be just getting an entry-level job at a wood mill. And once you've done that, then you can get into their apprenticeship program. You typically see that language on a standard that has less than 5. We do have some antiquated standards that have that where they have less than 5 and they don't have to have a selection procedure, but they'll have that listed in that selection procedure area that you need to have been working for that training agent. So one of the wood mills around the state might have it, and then you can apply to be in their apprenticeship program. So there's that additional little, like, you have to get employment from them and then get into their apprenticeship program. So you will see that on some of these programs. We are slowly working through these standards to ensure that they have at least an option for those who are not an employee already. But they are still out there, unfortunately or fortunately.
Great. Let's see here. Lots of questions coming in now. And I apologize if I don't get to all of them in the time allotted. Rachel from Canby asks, when reading about how they are placed, it sounds like they might not get work on each day they are available. Is there a certain number of paid hours most apprenticeships end up getting per week?
Great question. Within each standard, there is in one of the appendices, I believe, or somewhere in that boilerplate language, that a program is required to employ an apprentice a minimum number of hours. And I think it's 30 hours. There's a certain, I can't think of the language off the top of my head, but there's a certain language where it's like they need to be employed a certain amount that they can, it's not quite exactly full-time, but not less than 30 hours, I think, like that. If you're in a union apprenticeship, you might be on an out of work list, or on a dispatch list type of thing. If you're in a non-union, you would have like another type of out of work list scenario. So yes, you might not, if you're in the construction trades, you might not work a full 40 hours in a week, but that program is supposed to be making sure that you're at least getting to another job if you're not fully employed on that one job or underemployed.
That's great. So Laura, are apprentices paid while attending the certified classroom instruction?
Great question. Not always, unfortunately. It depends on the program. Some, like I said earlier, some programs have classroom work in the evenings. Some have classroom work during a week chunk at a time. Some have them during the winter times. Some of them allow for you to apply for unemployment during those weeks. So the Oregon Employment Department does offer certain benefits to folks who are in apprenticeship classes, but that is based upon income that you have accrued over your time in Oregon. So it really depends on the program that you're in. And when you are reaching out to these programs, ask them how they work with that, or what they expect of you and when classes are.
Great. So we have a question here from Jesse. It says at the beginning of the presentation, some less traditional apprenticeships were mentioned, in quotes, non-trades construction. Could you talk a little more about those?
Yeah, there was an initiative recently in the last couple of years to expand apprenticeship. And we have Boley ATD has been trying to work with different apprentice partners, such as community colleges, employers, to expand apprenticeship. And one of them, we have, I'm gonna have to scroll back to that. I'm like, what are they? Let me go back to that slide. Great question. Oh yeah, I don't even have it listed on that slide. Non-traditional, yeah, medical assistant, certified pharmacy technician, firefighter, certified alcohol and drug counselor, and qualified mental health associate. We do have those listed on the Boley website. Sorry, I can't explain more about them, but there are different, non-traditional is what we're calling it, even though in the past, certain things were traditionally apprenticeshipable back hundreds to 200 years ago when a lawyer was also an apprenticeship and a doctor was an apprenticeship. So we're sort of bringing that back into this apprenticeship fold. So you can find all of them on the Boley website listed on there as well.
Excellent. Okay, Laura, more questions. We've got about 11 minutes left. This next question says, for those of us supporting high school students, is there a way to access a list of apprenticeship options that includes when and how regularly each is open to applications? This is crucial information, especially for high school seniors who want to get rolling.
Yeah, thank you for that question. The best thing I can say is go to our website and look by occupation. Here's sort of what it looks like. We're going to go over this more in next session as well, more of like the website and how to search for these things. So you'll find like this on our website where it has this little search window and you can find a program by occupation or by county. The website's a little, unfortunately, wonky at this time. We are working to get it a bit more user-friendly. If anybody knows, the old website was a little less user-friendly. This one's a little bit more, and we're slowly getting there. But you have to go on each individual standard to see who's open or not at this time. But you can search by region, which is nice, or by trade. And I should also say, our website is not accurate on who is open or not. So I highly recommend calling a program and seeing when they open.
Great. All right. With that, I do not see any other. Oh, nope. I don't see any other questions that I've missed. So at this time, we do have 9 minutes left. If you would like to unmute yourself and ask a question yourself rather than typing it in the chat, I will invite that. And yes, I will be sharing the next sessions. I believe that Laura's included that in the PowerPoint.
Mhm. I just wanted to put this slide up here because I do have apprenticeship.gov is a great resource as well. That's the USDOL website for apprenticeship and all things apprenticeship. They have a great it's a great resources that you can look through. Oregon, as we're a state that governs our own apprenticeship. We are beholden to these rules on apprenticeship.gov, and we do give them our information. But that website has great resources in addition to our website, Bully ATD. And then if we have a general inbox as well for questions, if anybody has any at any time. And then I also put my email up there too, so anyone can contact me directly.
Excellent. Let's see. And yes, I will be sending an email out to everyone. You will all have access to the information for the next session. I will also be providing a recorded link to this session and the PowerPoint slides that Laura presented today. I wanted to encourage everyone to share this as freely as you wish and invite others to join as well for the next couple sessions. Are there any other questions that I might have missed? And I do not see, oh, more questions are coming. Let's see. So, Laura, can you give us a little brief overview of what the next session will be like, date, time, and what we plan on covering?
February 22nd. I think the time is at 11:30. 11:30. Part 2, trades apprenticeship resources, plus union and non-union apprenticeships. We'll discuss the functions of like the Bully website, give a little bit more resources on like pre-apprenticeships, how to find them. And then we're going to discuss sort of the differences between union and non-union apprenticeships, because that's a whole nother level of jargon and terminology and fun stuff. A whole nother presentation on terminology.
Yes, and that is actually a correction to the time. That it is at 9. I'm posting it right now.
Okay. Thank you.
And of course, we will include this all in the next meeting outline. Wonderful. Are there any final questions for Laura while we have her with us? You can feel free to unmute or type any questions you might have in the chat. I think it was a fantastic, informative session, and Laura is an excellent person to forward questions to. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and conclude the session if there are no more questions. Again, we will be sending out the PowerPoint plus a link to the recorded session and a list of the questions and answers that came out of today's session.